And so projects also tell a story, and there's much to learning how to manage a project well, but by far the most important concept is what are the outcomes you want for this project. So in this example, it was taken from a university project where they were going to re-engineer their enrollment process, make it better. And you could express the outcomes with something simple like improve enrollment levels, make enrollment faster and easier. Those are the types of goals that we see organizations create frequently. And they do set some direction and give you some background on the purpose of the project, but they're not nearly as powerful and useful as a goal like this, where you would say, we want to reduce the number of hours for processing transfer credits from 5 days to 2 hours. Now you think a goal like that, it becomes very focusing for the people on the team, and they begin to think about what are ways we could innovate to achieve that dramatic change from 5 days to 2 hours. And you know, necessity is the mother of invention, and so clear, crisp goals drive innovation for the project team. And those goals, those outcomes should feed into the goals we talked about earlier, where you're trying to close a gap. So by far the most important thing in a project is how you set it up and defining the crisp outcomes. I'd like to tell a story that sort of illustrates the power there is in outcomes. And this is a business case was written up years ago in Harvard Business Review by Michael Hammer. It was called Don't Automate, Obliterate. And it was a story about Ford Motors, who had at the time, I think, 450 people in a department that were processing payables for Ford Motors. And they set up a re-engineering project to improve the productivity of that process. And their initial objective was to improve the productivity by 10% so that they could process the same capacity or volume of payables with 400 people instead of 450. So roughly a 10% reduction in headcount to achieve the same thing. Well, somewhere in this process, somebody said, well, is this the right objective? Where did we come up with this 10%? And so they stopped and did some benchmarking, and they looked at Mazda, which was another one of their divisions, and they found out that if they were going to be as efficient as Mazda, they'd have to go from 450 to 50. Now think about this. Originally, their objective was 450 to 400. Now, all of a sudden, they're finding out that if they're going to equal Mazda, they have to go from 450 to 50. Now, you think about the difference in the way you would set up a project if you were trying to make a 10% improvement versus a 90% improvement. And the end of this story is they figured out how to do this. They figured out how to get to 50 people, but it would have never happened unless they set an objective that was this powerful. And so one of your roles as leaders, one of the most important value adds you have is crafting outcomes, deciding what you want to accomplish. And the difference between saving the money from that 400 people and being able to allocate those people to something more useful is what strategy is all about. And this kind of waste is all over in organizations. This isn't about layoffs, this is about reallocating people to higher priority purposes. And this is the way you transform an organization. And you as leaders have to understand the power of doing this.